you that I have not met before. And I'm the president this year of our Omega Chapter of CSI, and I'm on the school counseling track here, and hoping to graduate in May or June of this year. So doing internship right now. And so that's who I am. I just wanted to welcome all of you, all the faculty, for taking time out of their busy schedules to be with us tonight. We're so happy to have you, and wanted to thank all of our CSI members that are here as well, because I know you're all very busy, and we're just thrilled to have you all be a part of this. So basically, I won't go into much of what CSI does, but you all know we do social events, we do fundraisers, we do advocacy, we do all kinds of things. But one of the things that we do is professional development. So this is sort of considered professional development. We're trying to do a lot this year. Our theme is connections. So this kind of goes along with it. We're doing some connections and networking between the faculty here at Wright State and between our students, connections outside of the classroom. And because a lot of those relationships are really built, obviously in the classroom, but outside as well. Some of you that are on right now might be looking to graduate here soon in December or this coming spring. And we just want to remind you that CSI is an ongoing relationship, and we want you to remain a part of us once you've left Wright State. That's one of our big pushes this year, is to really keep alumni involved, get alumni involved, keep them involved. Because you have so much to offer once you leave here, leave Wright State. You have so much to offer us. They're still learning, and there's obviously lots of networking involved as well. So we want to, please, when you get those annoying emails from CSI to pay money, please renew it if you're willing to do so. So thank you. We're so happy to have you all here. Just one quick housekeeping thing I'll say. I am not a techie person at all, so I might be saying this wrong. So, but basically, mute yourselves when you're not talking, and all of the CSI people that are not on the panel, if you could go to the top where it says view, and then click on hide non-video participants, that would be helpful. So that's all for the intro, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to introduce our wonderful panel members, our faculty that are here with us this evening. Let me check really quick on the list. Are all 6 of them here? I think so. But at any rate, I'm going to go ahead and start introducing you all. So hold on one second. I'm sorry. So first of all, we're going to introduce Dr. Neelan Brown. She is the Assistant Chair of the Department of Human Services, and she's School Counseling Program Director, CSI Omega Chapter Faculty Advisor, Clinical Co-Coordinator, and Dr. Neelan Brown is a licensed professional counselor and licensed professional school counselor with years of experience working with children and adolescents in both the school and clinical setting. This is her 6th year at Wright State University, where she currently serves as the director of the Graduate School Counseling Program and the clinical coordinator. Although she sometimes misses working directly with the kids, she really enjoys training the next generation of counselors and couldn't imagine doing anything else. So, yep, she's on. Hi, Dr. Neelan Brown. Thanks for being with us. Next, I'll go on to introduce Dr. Josh Francis. He is our CMHC Program Director, CSI Omega Chapter Faculty Advisor. Dr. Francis is in his 5th year as an associate professor in the CMHC program here at Wright State. Prior to starting at Wright State, he was an adjunct professor at the University of Dayton and at Xavier University. For the past 20 years, he has also maintained a full-time private practice in the Tip City, Troy, Ohio area. His clinical areas of specialization are testing and assessment, chemical and process addictions, divorce and high conflict custody disputes, evolutionary mental health and wellness, but he has maintained a general practice dealing with all kinds of mental and emotional disorders. Dr. Francis enjoys spending time with his spouse and 6 children, working outdoors, exercise, reading, and woodworking.
I have to jump in there because I'm a little nervous. Last time I checked, I only have 5 kids.
I'm sorry.
So, if anybody has any announcements for me.
When you get home, you better check. There might be an extra one. Thank you for being here. Sorry about that typo.
No, I just want to make sure no one else knows anything that I don't know.
It might be a little foreshadowing. Okay.
Well, actually,
No, it's
Okay, any other comments before we move on?
no worries.
Sorry about that. All right. Thank you for being here. So next we have Dr. Huma Bashir. Welcome, thank you for being here, is the CMHC Program Director, Trauma Certificate Program Director. Dr. Bashir is an associate professor in the CMHC program here at Wright State, where she works with graduate students in classroom and clinical settings. She has co-developed the Trauma-Informed Counseling Certificate at Wright State. Dr. Bashir has completed extensive training in trauma treatment and has received eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy certification, and enjoys sharing her expertise with her students. She currently runs her private practice in Springfield, but began her career as a mental health outpatient counselor in an agency setting. So thank you for being here, Dr. Bashir.
Thank you for having me. Sorry. Thank you for having me. Muted.
Thank you for being here. And it's nice to meet you. I've not formally met you.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I've emailed with you, so thank you. Next on our panel, I'd like to introduce Dr. Donna Tromsky-Klingshirn, Organizational Counseling Program Director, CMHC Program Advisor. Dr. Tromsky-Klingshirn has been faculty here since fall of 2000. Her education and training include completing her master's, Counseling in Business and Industry, and doctorate, Counselor Education and Supervision degrees at The Ohio University. She worked in various community agency, public, and for-profit settings as a diversion therapist, clinical counselor, counselor supervisor, and employee assistance program specialist before entering the professoriate. She has taught 11 of the graduate counseling courses, totaling 147 sections and over 1,700 students. Her research publications on counselor supervision ethics, the dual role of clinical supervisor and administrative supervisor, and on using interactive theater in teaching multicultural counseling, have been cited in leading counseling textbooks. Her recent research and co-authored publications include Credit Recovery for Failing High School Freshmen and Cyberbullying. She has served as a leader and advocate for the counseling profession, providing key testimony to the Ohio Counselor, Social Worker, Marriage and Family Therapist Board and the Ohio Department of Education, which led to licensure changes for both clinical and school counselors. She has also served as Ohio Health Counselors Association President, Miami Valley Counseling Association Executive Board Member, and Chi Sigma Iota Omega Chapter Lifetime Member, and a chapter faculty advisor from the years of 2002 to 2014. So welcome tonight. Thank you for being here. And I did not know that you were a Bobcat. I am too, so go Bobcats. Thank you. All right, next we have Dr. Tara Hill, clinical co-coordinator. Dr. Hill is an associate professor in the Department of Human Services at Wright State University. She's been licensed as a counselor in Ohio since 2000. Dr. Hill has worked clinically with adolescents and adults in community mental health agencies, schools, private practice, and correctional settings. She is skilled in providing sexual offender and batterers treatment and conducting homicidal and suicidal risk assessments. Her research interests include sexual offenders and batterers, assessment and measurement, and relational diversity. Dr. Hill has been a methodologist on several projects, developed an assessment to measure intimate partner violence for adolescents and non-suicidal self-injury. She has been published in the Journal of Addictions and Offender Counseling, Journal of Human Services, International Journal of Police Science and Management, and numerous other peer-reviewed professional journals. Her passions include working closely with developing new counselors and clinical supervision. Outside of counselor education, she can be found surrounded by her pets and partner, close friends and family, and she likes attending concerts and live performances. So thank you, Dr. Hill, for being a part of this program. And last but not least, we have Dr. Mary Huber, Addictions Counseling Program Director, Interim Rehabilitation Counseling Program Director. Dr. Huber has designed, conducted, and evaluated both quantitative and qualitative studies and projects in the fields of vocational rehabilitation, substance abuse, mental health, and disability-related rehabilitation. She has worked in various settings, including academia, nonprofit agencies, private for-profit companies, and private counseling. Dr. Huber has published over 58 articles, monographs, and chapters in the disability and mental health fields. She has extensive experience as principal investigator for federal, state, and local agencies, managing millions of dollars in research funding. She was the editor for the Journal of Applied Rehabilitation Counseling for nearly 4 years and continues to review for rehabilitation journals. Over her lifetime, she received numerous awards and recently awarded a National Citation Award from the National Rehabilitation Counseling Association and awarded a President's Award from the American Rehabilitation Counseling Association. So thank you all for being here. I appreciate you listening to all that. My throat got a little scratchy there. You all have done so many wonderful things. It took a while to read it all. So next up, let's see if there's any other housekeeping tools. Oh, one more thing I want to tell you before we get started is feel free as we go to write any questions to the participants. The participants, CSI members. If you have any questions, what we're going to do is have you write the questions in the chat box, and at the end, I'll be kind of viewing that throughout the panel, and I'll take note of the questions you have, and we'll have some time at the end to ask our panelists those questions. We are recording this, so we're hoping to share this later. People that could not be present tonight, as well as possibly the whole department. Next, I'd like to introduce Rebecca Orr, CSI Omega Treasurer, and she's the mastermind behind this evening. I wanted to tell her a personal thank you and a little shout out because this was a lot of work organizing this. So thank you all, and I'll have her take over from here.
Hi, thank you so much, Bridget. I just want to thank the faculty again so much for being here. We have basically most of our full-time faculty, so I think that speaks a lot to how much you care about our education, and I feel really grateful to be a part of this department, as I'm sure all of our participants do. When we were talking about doing this faculty panel, and we were kind of throwing around ideas on what the topic should be, this was kind of a no-brainer. This year has been a doozy. So I'm really excited to have this conversation about just kind of some big topics of this year and how that relates to our profession. So I just want to reiterate that what Bridget said for the CSI members that are participating. If you have any specific questions as we're going through this conversation, put those in the chat box, and we're going to have a question and answer time towards the end of our hour today. I'm going to try to be as prompt as we can because I know that we all have lives. So if I'm kind of jumping topics, that's the chat box is your chance to kind of get clarification on anything that you need towards the end. So 2020, I feel like this year doesn't really need an introduction, but from a global pandemic to really worldwide social and political unrest and election year in our country, it's been a lot to kind of manage and juggle for our clients and for ourselves. So to start the conversation off, I would love if a couple of you would just share how this year has been for you professionally and personally. If anyone's willing to jump right in.
I can go. I think probably one of the words that probably describes it to most of me is probably exhausting. Because it just isn't one thing happening. I think having so many things go on that's impacting so many people. I think there's times where some people can kind of escape some things or things might not hit you. But right now it's almost as if there is pretty much no way that you cannot be impacted by something that is happening right now. And so this clearly is a time that I've never experienced in my lifetime. And so I think that's where it is that there is just so many levels to the stressors and things that are happening that is creating just so much more emotional and mental issues than probably what anybody could have ever prepared for. And so when we're thinking about just people who might already be struggling, when you throw all these additional layers on, the weight of that just has to be heavy across the board. Just because I can't imagine this all not being just a heavy time for just most people. And so I think just exhaustion, angst, just the whole idea of uncertainty, just kind of just lingering and really no way to even see where or when is there an end. So I think that's probably like the best way I would sum it up.
Does anyone else have any thoughts about how this year's been professionally, personally? Dr. Hill?
So I think I kind of relished in it initially and didn't mind being home and felt good about that. But now I'm like, miss the contact with folks and miss getting together with students and teaching actually face to face. I really don't love the isolation like I did at the beginning. So that's been a little bit, maybe my challenge a little bit. But my dogs are way better behaved than they used to be. So that is a positive outcome of this.
Hi, I can add to some little something. So, as you all know, I'm a crisis counselor. So with every crisis comes an opportunity. So I kind of reframed it where what is my opportunity in the midst of feeling so out of control and not having any control over any situation. So so I did some research on that and as a mood disorder therapist as well, uncertainty is just an underlining source for all of us who deal with anxiety and especially our clients who are dealing with it on a different level than we are maybe or perhaps. But I think it taught me to have time to reflect more. And I think I became a little bit more reflective about seeing and hearing what others are really, really going through. Because when you're also feeling the same feeling as your clients, maybe, even though we try to put ourselves in their shoes and we're very empathetic, but a lot of the situations we hear, we can't really understand it fully, right? But this is something that all of us are in it. So it makes it a little bit easier and better to help our clients if you can see that. And then truly you see the product or the benefit of that. And just, I miss not seeing my clients and my students. So I'm glad at least we can all turn our cameras on and we can see each other in whatever event. And I'm really tired of the WebEx now because I've been doing it since March. So I wish we can just go back to face and actually see people. But it's been a challenge with the technology for me because as far as doing what I do for Wright State, because it's just a lot. It's just such a transitional distance when you are not there and talk to people and run some ideas with people. It leaves you a little bit on an island sometimes. And I can relate to my students now when I teach online course. So I think there's a lot of learning and a lot of good that came out of it, at least for me.
I like that kind of positive aspect because I think a lot of us have struggled to see it in a positive light. But your point of using technology, we do have the ability to meet online and see each other online. So that kind of brings me into that conversation of telehealth. I'm not sure if any of our faculty who are practicing right now are using telehealth. How has that been for you? Has it been beneficial for some clients? Has it been difficult to connect with some clients? I don't know if anyone would like to talk about that a little bit.
I guess I'll jump the gun.
I'll be happy to as well. Go ahead, Huma.
Okay, go ahead, Josh. I just spoke. You go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Boy, where to start? So telehealth, it is a blessing. And I think, as my colleagues have said, it's really important to reframe this as, instead of saying what I can't do, to look at it, look at it as what we still can do. Early on, actually prior to, over the last couple of years, I've offered video counseling sessions for people who were traveling, for people who had various issues, is just as a convenience thing. And that was met pretty well, but pretty early on, both myself and my clients realized that, and it's kind of like this forum, like, and I've been saying this a lot lately, that video counseling is good, but it's not as good. And so pretty early on, when the pandemic hit, I moved just for about 3 weeks, about maybe 4 weeks, all video counseling. And then I started hearing really consistently from my clients saying, man, can we get back to the office? When can we get back to the office? When can I come in? And there's a couple different factors there. One is, we can't underestimate the power of presence and energy. And, we've been functioning through direct means for 200,000 years. And so creating this barrier, again, it's good, but it's not as good. And then the other part of that is part of what's so, in my opinion, what's so therapeutic about counseling is that it's an event. I have to leave my house. I have to get dressed. I have to run out. I have to set up a time. I have to walk into that office. I have to sit down, and that's my space. And without that, it takes away some of the therapeutic factors that come along with that. So I was pretty early to move beyond video. I still do it for certain clients who aren't comfortable. I've offered it the entire time for clients who feel that they are at a greater threat, and that's perfectly fine. I'm very supportive of that, and I don't mind it at all. But I've also just really wanted to, like many of us said today, to get back into that human connection, because I don't think we can underestimate that.
Dr. Bashir, you had some thoughts about telehealth too that I'd really like to hear, but I would also like to add on, you had mentioned, that you feel like you have greater empathy for your clients now that you have experienced some of the things that they might be experiencing. So as young counselors, maybe you can answer this, and someone else, how do we move through counseling clients who are going through maybe the exact same things that we're going through in real time, without with the transference and countertransference, and we might be triggered by the same things, especially with a lot that's going on politically right now. I think that, yes, it does increase our empathy for our clients, but it also can be difficult to have conversations that we might not feel personally ready for.
Yeah, so I would agree with everything Josh said about telehealth. I think it's a great medium. It's a better of the two evils, so to speak, because it's a necessity at this point, because if we don't have other option, then at least people can come and feel heard, and then be in that safe space, even though if it's electronically. So I'm enjoying. I still have few people that are not ready to come out and see me face to face. So I'm all about that. It's all about meeting your clients where they're at. So at least they're still progressing, and they're still getting what they need. It's not 100%, but you have to look at your goals for treatment and see what is it that you're working on, and you have to keep an eye on moving forward with those goals. So that's one. And number two, more empathy. I think it's just that walking in people's shoes, right? So we always try to really be very cognizant of that and congruent, because that's what I believe in, that you can be fake about something that you're hearing from your client, because it's going to show up pretty soon. So, but at this level where we're all at, where we're hearing things and we don't agree with on TV, or that we're seeing things played out on TV, or any of those unrests that we see politically, and then you see some of the things that, even like, let's say if an anxious client comes to you and they're going through with COVID, like my grandpa is in the hospital, and I I can't go see him. And so how am I going to deal with this, right? Or that I don't want to go see my grandpa who lives in the house right now because I don't want to give him because I'm still doing these other things. So there's a lot of distancing going on with elderly, um, families who have elderly subset, right? Subsystems like parents, grandparents, and things like that. So I have I have my own mother who's an elderly, and we are trying to protect her as much as we can. So, just identifying with them and helping them see that, you know what, I hear you, I see you. This is what I have done. Maybe you can see what else you can do with this situation, and how to help them understand that you're doing the best you can under the circumstances that you're in. Like, I can only control what I have control of, and then help them understand that and kind of help them with that anxiety. It's been what I have done. And then I use EMDR for that as well, by the way. So that helps. Tapping is what I use if I'm doing online sessions, or face to face, we do actual other things. And that seems to connect that brain to be more fluid instead of be fragmented. So that's some of the techniques that I use to help with that.
To go back to the question about as newer counselors of, also processing along with some of these things and trying to figure it out. We actually just had a similar conversation. Bridget is in my internship class. And so we kind of talked about where school counselors right now, or you have K-12 as early as third graders right now, trying to make sense of so much political conversation and what it all means, and just the division that is created of things that they're trying to understand, but even just talking with the internship students who are getting ready to become counselors and who are in the field right now, of realizing that I don't even know how I feel about some of these things. And I think that that's a natural place to be. I think it's an appropriate place to be, to not really know. But I think one of the important things is to kind of just first having that awareness for yourself, being okay that that's where you are, and taking the time to really kind of figure it out for yourself. And I think that's okay. I think to be honest and say, I don't know how I feel. I don't know what it all means. I know that it's not a good feeling. I think that's okay. And I think that we need to make it okay to say that we're all feeling some uneasiness. The other part is kind of like the thread through most of your questions is that self-care piece and that counselor wellness that we have to do. We have to take care of ourselves. And I think when I began with the whole exhaustion thing, recognizing that we are equally exhausted as our clients, and also experiencing those same things. So now more than ever, that self-care and wellness is just critical to us to be able to help people, realizing that they are going to be experiencing some of those things, and to avoid some of that countertransference and just counselor impairment. And then also being willing to say that maybe today is not a good day to see clients. And I think that that's appropriate and that's fair, that we want to make sure that we're ethical in what we do. And if you are having a struggling day, making sure that you're seeking supervision. Peer supervision is amazing as well, because your peers are probably experiencing some of the similar things that you might be experiencing, but just really taking care of ourselves and it being okay to also not be okay.
Does anyone else have any thoughts about maybe even self-care, as far as one, as a lot of us are practicum and practicum and internship students, we are seeing clients already, whether we're school counseling and we're with students, or addiction counseling and we're, trying to meet the needs of those who are working through some substance or process issues in a really isolating time. How do you have any, advice on our self-care and how we can be, I know it's personal, but how we can be kind of processing chronic stress so we can practice what we're preaching to a lot of our clients?
Real quick, I just want to throw one thing out here because I feel so passionate about it. So we know that the pandemic has caused us to sit in front of our computer exponentially more than we used to. It's caused us to increase our relationship with technology. We have to watch that. We have to monitor our screen time. We have to get outside as much as we can. And we have to avoid getting sucked into the trap of social media and all the other all the other hooks that come along with our increasing connection and tie and very likely addiction to technology. We have to monitor that.
Just an FYI, this is Leslie and I's third time on the internet today with our meetings.
Both like 2-hour sessions. So, and my comment right before this was, my eyes are like almost done right now. And so I don't plan on looking at another screen for the rest of the day. And so I think as self-care, really being able to space. So if you are doing telehealth or doing a lot on the screen, taking those breaks, you got to take those breaks. I mean, we know it's not good for our eyes. They have all types of things. I have Blu-ray glasses somewhere, have no idea where they are. So keeping track of those things so that you're utilizing those, getting outside. And so one of the things usually I do either before or after my class is that's when I usually walk my dogs, because it's forcing me outside away from a screen. I'm getting some sun, I'm getting fresh air, nature, the dog is therapeutic, but really trying to put those things in your day that they shouldn't be a chore or a task, that it's almost like I'm penciling it in. Like I got to have at least 20 minutes in between my next set so that I can have that moment to be able to kind of just recoup from looking at screens.
And I just wanted to add, we all want to, even when we're seeing clients face to face, we want to have a self-care plan in between, like we're not eating lunches on our desk and things like that. We're moving around, going out. But I wonder, Josh, I don't know if you've noticed the same thing. My personal experience with telehealth was I couldn't see people back to back like I would normally see clients. That was draining for me. And that's something I realized early on, and I kind of quickly learned about myself, that this is more tiring, because to me, telehealth required another type of energy and focus that maybe when you are building, when you're face to face, that energy is a little bit different, or you're in the present, so it makes a difference. I don't know what that is. I can't pinpoint. But so my supervisees, I've been asking them and helping them with how to time their sessions and how to put in a face-to-face, or how to take a break and maybe not take the lunch all in 1 hour, but take it in few increments so they get a little bit of break between their online sessions perhaps. And I don't know, Josh, you.
Yeah, I've heard a couple different theories in this research as far as Zoom fatigue goes, but my own theory is that the brain gets like a does not compute signal. So we're built and designed to interact interpersonally, and so the computer is like is tricking our brain into thinking. So the brain's thinking, okay, I see this person, I hear this person, I'm connecting to this person, I empathize with this person, but I'm not in the presence of this person. And you get this error message that creates this really weird fatigue. And so when we after we get out of 2, 3, 4, 5, a whole day's worth of Zoom meetings, the brain is like, what the heck just happened there? Because I was talking, I think I was relating, I think I was empathizing, but I didn't sense, feel, or connect with that person. And it's this bizarre, never before seen response from the brain, because we've never had to do this before, not to this magnitude.
I think, yes. And I think we could talk about technology I hear a lot of conversation within the counseling field and just kind of in general media about the, like social media addiction and technology addiction, and also just addiction issues in general, with like alcohol sales increasing exponentially this year. So I don't know, Dr. Huber, I think that you left the screen, but I did have a question for you about if you could speak a little bit to, I mean, the addiction students, but really all of us, because we're going to all run into it at some point or another, about how you think this year is going to impact those who already have maybe substance misuse, or maybe we're just social drinkers or social smokers, and suddenly we're at home all the time and we're doing online meetings. We can drink whatever we want.
Right.
So could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we've definitely seen an increase in use, and that's documented with, sorry if you hear my dog barking in the background, an increase in overdoses and deaths related to opioid use. but it's just another stressor on our community. And so individuals who are compromised and then face, not have any support that they might have had before that they don't have, it's just another trigger to use. And so it's just really a sad situation. And because of COVID, the attention has been on the virus, which has pulled away from the opioid epidemic. So there's less attention. And then as a result, there's less money for research. So it just kind of compiles. And it's a very, very, unfortunate situation where people are just, desperate before COVID. And then you put COVID on top of that. And, it's just a very unfortunate mix of variables and social determinants.
Yeah, kind of to add to that, Dr. Huber, it was funny because I was having a conversation yesterday just about some of the political conversation. And I can't remember, it was a candidate, it could have been a local candidate, and they were talking about just the opioid epidemic. And the person I was talking to goes, "It's still an epidemic?" And because all of they're thinking about right now is the pandemic. And so not even recognizing that there are still other things that are happening to people. And I think that addiction and just how it had impacted us right before the pandemic, we're not talking about it anymore. But just because we're not talking about it doesn't mean that it's still not happening, that people are still overdosing. And as Dr. Huber was saying, this is the perfect recipe for addiction to kind of run wild and rampant. And so it's not shocking to see that we're in a place, but we're not giving it the attention that probably it should be getting right now, because it is serious. And I think that more people now not having those connections to people also is leaving them isolated. And then others aren't even realizing how much people might be struggling because they're not seeing them on a day-to-day basis. To know that they might need that additional support to either stay sober or clean, or to even begin or initiate maybe trying to do something about it.
Right, exactly. Yep. Thank you.
So this question is for Dr. Chomsky-Klingsher. And, with all of these variables that we're seeing, with your background as an educator, and, you've worked with so many students, do you have some specific advice for us who are really leaving graduate school and walking into the profession at this time in history? Is there any advice, or is there anything that we should be, looking for, or any resources that you have to share for those of us that are graduating probably within the next year?
First, welcome to the world of counseling. Welcome to this time and place. It's been the best of times. It's been the worst of times in many ways, to quote, Charles Dickens, and some of the classics. One of the things that I think this brings, I wouldn't worry so much about this time and place. I'd worry about being the best counselor you can be, because the core skills that, all those basic, 11 or 12, whatever you took, in your techniques class, those have always been. Those have remained unchanged. And so regardless of what your client comes in with, regardless that, the profession, may think you need to use a glossary of, certain vocabulary. At the end of the day, it's really how present you are with the client. So those things have never gone away. Those things are what make people good counselors, great counselors. The rest of it, you can learn. The pool is endless with different. No one will ever be an expert at everything. You won't, you can learn all these new, fancy techniques and whatnot, and they all serve a purpose. But again, how present you are to a client is what makes you a good therapist. Do they trust you? And admitting when you don't know everything, and also, thank you, Rebecca, for posing these questions, because I came up with some theme words that like redemptive suffering. Now, that's not something you hear. I mean, that I'm talking like since centuries ago, redemptive suffering. Well, who says that? Who well, mystics and our saints have certainly were and martyrs of that Viktor Frankl, A Man's Search for Meaning. That's redemptive suffering. So in other words, this time and place sucks, in many ways, but there can be some redemptive parts to it too. If none of us can say we've become a little better because of it, or perhaps become a little bit more reflective, or even creative, or noticing, not taking things as much for granted, even in the face of death, watching other people die, watching or hearing the stories of people's suffering through all this, that even if you don't want to say, gee, some suffering is redemptive, and I'm not talking about having a martyrdom complex by no means, but Martin Luther King, Maya Angelou, their writings, redemptive, there is a purpose in it that we may not know right now, but good can and does come from it. Be patient with yourself and be encouraged.
Thank you for that. I think that yeah, I really like that perspective. And I definitely think that redemptive suffering, or meaning making in a lot of things right now, that's something that I, in my very short semester long, that's a big theme that I've seen with clients in my supervision, is that whole meaning making. So, Dr. Hill, I don't know if you have any insight on not just meaning making for clients, but as a counselor and as a young counselor coming out, I think a lot of us have this idea of, okay, we can leave our clients' stuff at the office and go home, but a lot of us are working from home with telehealth. How I feel like this year is hard to separate their issues from our issues, because a lot of the time they're the same. So do you have any words to speak on being able to separate that?
I think that's a great question. And I have two comments about that. There is an identity or a hat that as counselors you wear that you actually physically consider when you are stepping into that role and when you're taking it off and leaving the office. And I think new counselors have more trouble identifying what that feeling is between the professional role and the I'm going to just have fun now role, or be myself. You'll start to understand that feeling. I think it took me probably a few years to kind of understand the switch that happens. But also I developed certain things to help myself in that area. So before I went into the office in the morning, I would sit in my car and listen to the loudest song I could come up with and, pep myself up to get into the mindset. And then I'd go into my office between clients. I would sit and just kind of ground myself again and think about the client and who I was about to see and what I needed to do with them. But we talk about self-care in so many ways. It's great if you have a hobby, if you're a painter, or if you knit, or if you like to go jogging, but between clients, you can't always do that. So finding a self-care practice that you can do in a split second or a blink of an eye or in 30 seconds, those are the kinds of self-care techniques that also need to be developed. And that for me, in between clients, that grounding piece where I literally sat down and take a few breaths. Some people say a prayer during that time. Some people have a mantra. I just encourage you to find something that you can do that's going to decompress you from one session and prepare, get you centered so that you can work fully on the next session. And again, sometimes it means going and blowing off steam in somebody's office. Sometimes it means screaming in a pillow. You know, whatever that moment is for you, doing jumping jacks, whatever, something you can do in a short amount of time to regroup is an ideal self-care mechanism that you should try to develop.
Leaving work, I think that whether you're a counselor, an educator, you work in business, not having that drive home time, I think that so many of us probably took it for granted. And so to try to battle some of that, because I think in that time, that was your decompression. And so that routine of after work, I have this time, whether it's 5 or 20 minutes, you were taking things off. And a lot of people don't have that because you're either just stepping away from a computer or closing a screen. And I don't think it's enough time that we really need to kind of really pull all of that stuff up. And so I think that almost having to probably recreate what that can look like if you're not having that transition time can help. That maybe having some type of routine that you're going to do that kind of signals that I am done and gives you the amount of time that you need to transition back into personal. Because I think that's also been the difficult thing is like you can close the laptop, but your mind's still wandering about everything professional that's going on. And so you really didn't leave work. And then you're still maybe in the same building that you've been, your home. So it's hard to make that transition. So that's one of the things that I've been working on is really having a full process of closing things down, cleaning up the desk, putting my planner to the side, and then saying I'm not looking at those emails anymore has kind of helped giving myself enough time to be able to start. And sometimes I do just sit at this desk for a minute and looking at the clean desk because it also is allowing me a little bit of that drive home that I'm not having anymore because I'm just kind of like blank slating it before I can go kind of reintegrate myself with like my family.
And then also when in doubt, have a mental health day. Like, you know, just know that about yourself. So I think mindfulness is important to be aware where you're at.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much again. We're nearing the end of time, and I know Bridget has a couple of announcements. And I think we have one question. So I'm going to give it over to Bridget so she can facilitate the question that was asked in the chat box. And I personally want to thank you guys again so much. Like Bridget said, this was kind of my baby this semester. So you coming out to have this conversation with us, it means a lot to me personally, and I know it means a lot to our whole CSI chapter. So thank you. Thank you. Bridget, if you want to take over.
All right. Thanks again. As Rebecca said, we just appreciate sharing all of your knowledge with us. One question that came up from Stephanie, how in your own unique way do you help children to understand what they don't understand? So we only have a minute or two, but if somebody wants to take that.
I'll be happy to take a stab at that one. So depending on kids' age, so one of the things that's where, and we actually offer a class in play therapy. If you're going to work with kids, it can be wonderful. So we use various types of play, as well as I enjoy art therapy and with therapeutic drawings to get them to create physical things that help them understand their emotions better. So depending on their age, it's very challenging to help kids understand what their thoughts are. And so my favorite way is to do that through play, through art, through tangible behaviors and games that you can play with them.
I think books are awesome right now. And there's literally a book now about any and everything that creating, I think self-publishing is so easy now that, and luckily there's enough of people who care enough to be able to want to break things down. And so that's my favorite thing. I used it when I did work with children and adolescents, because most of my clinical experience was with children and adolescents or in the school setting. But I also use it with my own son. Whenever we have to get to the tough stuff, we find books and we read them together. And it allows him to kind of process it in his own language. And then we just kind of talk about it. Also now there's so many videos. I love using media outlets, and so shows, videos that are kind of exploring things from a kid's perspective help a lot. And then you're using the things that they're already engaged in that they might be watching, or a YouTube person that's already kind of discussing some of these things, because it kind of just goes into their world.
Okay, thank you both for sharing. So I'm going to go ahead and just conclude with a few quick announcements. Just some CSI announcements. So some of you may be aware that we had a t-shirt contest, and the theme was Be Well, and the votes came in and we have a winner. I think there's a picture right there. It is. It's got a little rainbow. It says Be Well, and there's some awesome important big words on the back of it. Rebecca Kolsak was our winner. Thank you to everyone else that participated as well and submitted designs. But Rebecca is the winner. She's going to be getting a $10 Starbucks gift card. So what we're going to do is we are going to, sometime in the next day or two, get together a link and share it with all of you. And we would love for you to purchase a shirt if you choose to. It's going to be our fundraiser for CSI. So it helps us, do events and things like that. We chose not to put CSI on the shirt because we felt like this would be a great shirt that you could share with, friends and family to purchase as well. And it goes along with mental health theme. Obviously, we're in the thick of it all. So we just felt like it was a very fitting theme. So look for a link to come your way to order those t-shirts, and congrats, Rebecca. Let's see. What else? So also initiation is coming up. We are going to have November 6th, 6 p.m. Friday night initiation is going to be held virtually. We will send out more details on that soon. We'll be having Dr. Brubaker from UC will be our guest speaker at that event. So we're really excited about trying it out in a virtual format. I think it'll be great. So put that on your calendar. And then also Kindness Week is coming up the week of November 9th. So we've got some activities planned for that. So look for that coming your way. And we also, Rebecca put up here on the screen, social media. We're trying to push social media hard this year. We have Facebook and we just started Instagram. We're going to be posting a lot of info on that. And so please just join those pages. Sometimes we have little contests too, where you can win little gift cards, which is fun. And I think that's it. We just really want to thank you one more time for being here this evening, to the faculty members for sharing your expertise and your thoughts. And thank you to our CSI members for being present. Thank you to Rebecca for just throwing this all together and doing a wonderful job planning it and facilitating. So I think that's it. So go enjoy your evening. And if there's any other questions or comments, you can chat for another minute or two, either through the chat box, or we can stay on for another minute or two. Thank you all.
I just wanted to say, Rebecca, you did an amazing job facilitating this. You kept the conversation going. You were able to hit all of those questions. And I'm sure we all can be very long-winded. Anyone who has had a class with any of us, I'm sure that we all have our own kind of way of being a little long-winded when we want to, but I thought you did a really great job of really just keeping it going and engaging all of the panelists in such a way that you didn't cut anyone off, but you were also very efficient with the time. So very well put together.
Thank you very much.
I think this was really a great idea, and thank you so much for doing this today.
Thank you guys for being a part of it. It means a lot. Thank you.